How much good do doctors do? I am using the slides and research of Dr. Gregory Lewis to answer this question. Observation is to look at the percentage spent on medical care compared to mortality rates over time. As you can see, mortality was dropping rapidly before expenditure increased dramatically, and when spending increased dramatically, the mortality levels, which had been declining rapidly, leveled off. So this doesn't even suggest there is a relationship between the two. If we look at the introduction of many crucial vaccines, we find that levels were decreasing well before they were invented, and nothing seems to change after they were introduced. If we look at DALYs, or disability adjusted life years, compared to the number of doctors, we get this graph. DALYs are a bad thing, so you want less of them. If we draw a line of best fit, we see the benefit of extra doctors levels off dramatically. This analysis is calibrated to the difference a doctor would make in the UK, but the UK doesn't actually have that many doctors for a developed nation. So places like the USA, Switzerland, and in particular Israel will have a lot more doctors, so the estimate will be much less in these countries. Based on this analysis, a doctor contributes 600 health years over a career in the UK. But this is not an accurate analysis. There are confounding variables like wealth, education, health behavior, and sanitation that correlate with the number of doctors. Wealth and education are far more explanatory according to experts. So if we try to control for these factors, we get an estimate of 160 DALYs per medical career, or something like one life saved every decade. But the fact is that medical school is competitive with a limited amount of placements. So by becoming a doctor, you are not adding an extra doctor, you are just replacing a doctor, and the difference you make depends on how much better you are than the other doctor, which may be marginal. I think this is a devastating point which should dramatically reduce the estimate, but Greg Lewis simply says that the number is probably less than 100 DALYs per career. So we are talking about perhaps saving 1 or 2 lives over a career, but of course you have to dedicate your own life in order to achieve this. But this doesn't take into account that doctors in the UK are paid by the state. What is the financial toll being taken? Taxes generally target the rich, but if a richer person owns a business, they might not be able to hire someone who needs the job because of higher taxes. So higher taxes does affect the lower levels of society. There are people in the UK who die because they can't afford to stay warm. Financial stress is known to be associated with increased risk of heart attack, not to mention the simple increase in quality of life someone may derive from keeping more of their tax dollars. He says he hopes the number doesn't become negative, but from what I know about iatrogenic deaths, I covered it in a different video, it is very likely that a bad doctor would cause more harm than good. And probably not even a particularly bad doctor. Perhaps one standard deviation away from the norm would be enough. It seems that if you want to genuinely do good, it takes some thinking outside of the box. You have to think like an entrepreneur and find ways of doing things others are not doing. Or perhaps just take up a trade that doesn't seem to be as subject to the laws of diminishing return. Or you can do what Greg Lewis decided to do, which was donate part of his salary to charity.